it was a sad thing, not that I couldn't come. But anyways, I hope you will find the topic interesting. I can't see everyone, but I wanted to know just how many of you already have dispersed teams or are planning to set them up, like follow the sun model. So maybe the moderators will help with how many people there are.
Like about 20, 25.
Okay. So this seems like
Yes.
good group.
And people are mingling here, so coming, going. So, okay.
I think that's the beauty of the camp
Yes.
setting. Yeah, okay, so let's dive into this. This will be about the dispersed teams. All right. You can see my screen, right? I hope so.
Yes, we can see it. Thank you.
Okay, so we will talk about three things that are the basics of the dispersed teams management, and these are people as number one. We will talk mostly about people, but tools and processes are the things that support people, but are very, very important as well. So we cannot miss them. And this is something that you will really have to think about when either managing your teams or setting them up. Or, for example, after the acquisitions, we will talk about it, how to deal with diverse tools and processes as well. This is a big topic. But I think when we think about the PM teams, about any dispersed teams, geographically dispersed, people are number one because people will build your company, your culture, and people. This is the area that you will have to put most of your time into when you want to set up these teams, or for example, after acquisition, you want to make sure that everything works smoothly. This will be the area where you will have to put most of your time in. So in this presentation, we will spend most of the time in this area as well. And let's start with some numbers. This is a short overview of what we are dealing with every day. So basically, 30 times per hour is the average that we check our emails. As you know, it might be even more than that. It might be less when we are working in the focus mode or we are really trying to cut down on the emails. But I think for most of us, this is the reality. 1,500 times a week, we just raise our phones and check what's going on, have a look at it, maybe something came. Phones are there as well, like the watches, the smart watches are there. So we stay connected all the time, and we do it quite a lot every single day of the week. And what this leads to is that our attention span it gets shorter and shorter. And currently it is 9 seconds. So this presentation is already gone because 9 seconds are gone. The attention span is gone. This is what we have as adults, is 9 seconds only of the full attention. And then we start either to think about something else or check our phone or think about other stuff. This is very, very short. 9 seconds is very short. This means that, for example, if you have a complex email, only 20% of this will get the full attention. And the rest, people might glance through it, people might read it, but it will not get the full attention. And these numbers are super, super important for what we will be talking about afterwards, how to set up the teams and how to make sure everything works. It's important to remember also that we live in more and more of the video world, and sometimes people prefer to watch than to read, especially if it's like, for example, long instruction. People will prefer to watch it on YouTube, or people are used to choosing their content, like on Netflix. So everyone decides on what they want to watch. And of course, this is reflected in their work environment as well, because simply we are not used to reading that much of more complicated stuff. Before, the manuals, maybe no one read them, but if you had an issue, you would go to the manual. Now you would rather search for a video for someone to show you how it's done actually. So when it comes to people, this is really important to remember that this is the crowd you will be dealing with. So it's not like you will have people who will sit still for 8 hours, very focused, and whatever you share with them in an email will get understood, people will follow it, and so on. It might happen that you will prepare a beautiful email to your dispersed teams, and every single team will read a different 20% of the email. So you will get people using parts of the process or doing stuff, different stuff from the process. And simply, this is something that you as a leader have to take into account. And of course, us as team members, we have to think about it as well to make sure that we overcome this and we do pay more attention to the things that are important. But generally, this is something to always bear in mind whenever you prepare new processes, whenever you change something with your teams, or whenever you feel like innovation is needed and you have to change stuff. Keep these numbers in mind. I think this is really important. This is just a sign of the times, and we just have to adjust to this because I don't think we can really change it. I think it's more about accepting. And this is exactly what Indra was saying about the trust. It's crucial for the dispersed teams as well. Trust is one of the most important things when you manage the dispersed team, geographically dispersed teams. And I have a very good quote here that without the trust, conflict becomes impossible. And we do need conflict. You do need conflict in your teams. And I don't mean the conflict where people fight with each other about silly things. I mean the conflict where people are courageous enough to speak up, to say that this decision may be not the best one, that we will have these challenges, and this will let you grow. This is the biggest thing for the innovation. And we have seen it a lot. For example, we have our own application, and of course, we plan the sprints for the new developments and so on, depending on what is needed for the customers. But generally, it's great when people say, oh, but this feature won't work, or it will be a lot of work, but it will not bring us a lot of benefit. Let's do it other way. So you have to create this safe space kind of for people to speak up and create trust to make sure that everyone is open to talk, because only this will allow you to really innovate, to make sure that you move forward, and also that you kind of don't go over the same mistakes again, and or you don't make the mistakes that someone else already did before, and they will share it with you that this way will not work. And how to do it, how to create trust. This is a process. It's not easy, and it takes time. But if you are persistent, and again, like Indra was saying, that persistence is really important to make sure you follow the rules, follow what I put here together a few points, but make sure that you adjust also to your people and make sure you see them as the first ones. So what really helps is showing people the big picture. This is something that everyone appreciates, and this is about making sure that you are transparent on what are the company goals, what are the expectations, what are the plans, but also what are the risks, what are the things that might not go right. And it's not about scaring people that, oh, we might not get out of this year with this or that. It's just about making sure that people understand that, for example, if we invest so much in this might, the other investment or the other thing that we wanted to do might not work out, and we'll have to move it to another year. Usually my experience is that people really, really appreciate this, and the more you involve everyone, the better everyone feels. And also when you have dispersed teams, they are in kind of silos, in this geo silos with the people from their own geo. I say geo as a geography. This is the slang that we use. So this is like the local office, let's say. And usually they really appreciate when you show them the overall company goal, how you impact the goal. If you do this, how it impacts the overall strategy, for example. And second thing are expectations. This is something that you really, really, I think this is the key to trust, but also to leading the teams, especially the dispersed teams, are the expectations. Never assume anything. Never assume that people will understand, that they will do it this way, because maybe in your culture, this is self-explanatory and it will happen. But in the other cultures, it might not. And then you will have a situation where you are surprised that something happened, but you didn't set your expectations right. And I have been through quite a lot of surprises like this. You learn the whole time, but I think it helped me to make sure that I set up like the clear expectations. And even some things might seem silly to you to say to people, that, for example, you expect them to tell you every time they make a mistake. This is, for example, my expectation that if people make mistakes that have a bigger impact, I expect them to come and share them and share the solution as well. So what do we do in the situation? This already happened. What do we do? How do we fix the problem? And usually, first of all, this helps us to solve the problem. I never learned from customers, for example, that something happened. Um, and second of all, this allows everyone to learn from this mistake, but also you make sure that this person will never make it again. And but again, this is the area for trust. So people will not come to you if they don't trust you. They will hide their mistakes then, and it causes a lot of issues if you don't know that something happened. And yeah, mistakes are human; they will always happen. So just make sure that you handle them properly. Especially with different time zones, you might not see something right away. So the only solution is for the person who made the mistake to come to you. Listening, this, I think pages were written about listening actively. This is such a cliche, but I think it's really, really important. And again, never assume. Listen actively in a way that you don't assume that this person will say this or that, which is our human thing that we expect what will be said. Uh, just really focus on what the person wants to tell you, and be honest in all of this. I think this is again something very obvious, but it's in business. I think it is really, really important to make sure that you are honest as a person. The next point is about it as well, about the integrity. As a leader, but also as a team member, keep the integrity. So make sure that whatever you expect, you also give at the same level. So if I expect everyone to admit to mistakes, I have to admit to my mistakes as well, and make sure that I present the plan to solve them. And I don't hide them. I don't pretend that, oh, I'm the best person in the world and never these things never happen to me, because then you are not honest. You are not keeping your integrity, and people know it, and this destroys trust basically. You also build trust by appreciation, but by the right appreciation. So it's not like just throwing it out there, great job, generally nothing specific. It's more about making sure that you really tell people for what you appreciate them, what was amazing about this email, about this customer appreciation, or how they handled the team situation, how they handle time zones, for example. Sometimes people really handle amazing things, be like over their time zones. So be really specific, and the more specific you are, the better examples you give, the more impact it has. It also helps you with dispersed teams. You have to be super, super careful about not favorizing one of the teams, which usually will be your time zone team, because you spend most of your time with them. You need to make sure that you treat all the teams equally, and you don't make any of the teams feel that they are better than the others. And this appreciation, in a way that you really give examples, it also allows for this, that no one feels like they're better or worse. Uh, People then like join the appreciation because they see the reason and they understand where it comes from. And it's also, we trust people whom we know. So this is the last point here, but it's really important. Get personal, like really get to know your people. And it's not about gossiping on the one-on-ones. It's more about making sure that you know something about, you know what they like, you know what they are interested in. You don't have to go really into the details of their life unless they want to share. But make sure people feel that you are interested in them, in their lives, in whatever they do, also outside of the work. It's not like just business relationship. And this means also that you will have to share something about yourself. It doesn't have to be too many details, but I think already something that might be interesting for them, where you really catch this communication and you can really feel like familiarity, this really helps. Okay. Still on people. Like I said, people will take quite a lot of time because this is really important. One advice I can give to everyone who is planning or who is having the teams is to go over the teams and make sure you know exactly what people like and dislike. And of course, it's easier when we have people across the globe and they're in different teams and they have different roles. But basically, get to know your people. Even if you have 4 people, you can shift tasks around to make sure that people are happy. And with PMs, we evaluate their tasks. And of course, it seems like PMs are doing the projects and that's it. No, there is a lot of stuff they do additionally, and some of the stuff they might like or not. So do the list of the tasks, make sure you categorize them into 4 categories. These categories are here. It's love and they are great at, like and they are great at, don't like and are good at. This is the a bit difficult one, and then the easy one, dislike and are not good at. And what you do with this, once you have it in the list, and once you see what people like, what they dislike, it will show you, first of all, where the person is, if they really like the job, or maybe it's a PM, but maybe you need to move them to VM department because it's totally not their piece of cake. Like maybe they don't like it really. So it will show you also where people are. And for people to do this exercise properly, you have to go back to the previous slide and have their trust for them to open up in front of you and tell you really what they like. And I have a good example here, what we did. We have heads of production in every geo, and they are managing locally the PMs and all the other support departments. And of course, we create documentation like SLAs, SOPs, so all of these documents that will document processes, or that will document the agreements we have between departments or for a certain customer. And I learned that most of the heads, they hated. This was the part they really disliked about creating this documentation, making sure it's right, versioning, all of these things. It just wasn't their thing. And it turned out, and we do have a person who is creating documentation in the company, and she's amazing at it. This is her job. This is her full-time job. And although she was hired for the software, so to document things from the technical point of view, it turns out she's amazing in doing our documentation as well. So like more the process, the business documentation. And then you get a bunch of happy people who don't have to do what they really dislike. And you have a person who is really great at it. And the result is that we have documentation much faster. It's like I don't have to wait and follow up and so on. It's just done. And also, it doesn't take time from the people who didn't like it, who are not good at it. So think about it. Even though it might seem like you have 4 people, so they have to do everything, small tasks you can always delegate or move somewhere or automate. This is always, automation is always really helpful, I would say. And to do this again, people are important, and it's important to hire people that manage themselves so that you don't have to check everything. With dispersed teams, you won't have a chance to make sure that this was done, this wasn't done, where you are with this project. Of course, you can do it, but this person might be 12 hours away from you in the time zones. So you need to make sure that people manage themselves and they don't need someone to check up on them constantly. Especially your team leads, the managers that you have in the teams. This is super, super important. But also in the teams, the more you can have one person remotely somewhere to cover really 24/7, and this person should be managing itself as well. This is a great help, I would say. It just really helps you in the whole management thing and in driving the results. This is really crucial. And one last point is that you really need to embrace the differences, the different viewpoints and cultures. And again, never assume that things will happen a certain way. because in some other cultures it might be totally different. Basic things, for example, like communication that we will come to. In some cultures, communication is being promoted since early years. Kids are asked at school to speak up, they can talk freely. In other cultures, they should rather keep low. So if you take two people like this, it might seem that the other person doesn't have anything to say, but it's just the impact of the culture they were brought up with. And as a leader, you really have to embrace this and think about it and pay attention to it. Okay, and this is a lighter lighter part of the whole people thing. What we have, for example, we introduced the watercolor meetings recently. So I meet with two people a month, half an hour. But this is across the company. We have a bot that is kind of matching people, and it's matching people from all locations, from all departments, all levels. So you can have a meeting with CEO, and the next day you can meet the intern. So it's really, really to get to know each other. It's a free chat, and even if it's someone you know already and you talk to them, it gives you half of an hour just to talk about something that might be interesting. I think this is amazing. I recommend introducing this. This is really, really great. Even for the smaller teams, like I said, even if you have a few people and you do know each other, it might be good just to chat that you would normally buy the water cooler or buy the coffee, and now it's gone because of the remote work. And I think because of all the changes that are happening. And for this kind of building of the friends relationship, we also do a lot of cross-departmental teams so that people get to know each other. So we have people from India working with people from Canada on some projects just to make sure that they get to know each other. Because again, if you know someone, you trust them, and the whole cooperation is better. Uh, and we also celebrate like birthdays, anniversaries at work, some life events like kids, births, or weddings, all of these things. So I think these are small things, but they do make impact on people. And Gallup has been checking this. They have been doing research for quite a few years on the whole engagement, on the friends at work, and when you engage most. And it does have an impact if you have friends at work that you come to and you can talk to. You can also go to them when something goes wrong and say, "Oh, this is not going right," and it will help people feel better in the company. Okay, from people we move to processes. Oh, but again, it's a lot of, well, it's connected to people still, because the first thing you need to set up is the communication, because this is something that you will have every single day between the dispersed teams, and you need to make sure the rules are there. And again, you don't assume anything. You don't assume that people will know to use email or to put the note in the system. You need to make sure that people are clear about it and that expectations are clear. So first of all, you do need to set up rules for the emails, for which parts of the communications will be run via email, what can be in the Teams, for example, and what has to be, which communications they have to be in the system. So all of this, we do need to make sure that we clarify with Teams before, because especially after acquisitions, teams will use different ways of communications. Some of them will send files over Teams, for example, which is of course not where we want to be. So all of these things you need to make sure that you unify and have clear rules for. And this is connected also with the language, because some teams, of course, you will have local teams that it will be easier for them to speak in their own native language. And it might happen that in the body of the email you will have some language and then on top of it English sent to someone else. So we just need to make sure that everything we agree, that, let's say, English is our language, so everything has to be in English. There are no other languages in the communications, because then when the further team takes over, let's say it was completed somewhere in our time zone, like in CET time zone, and then it goes to the Pacific time zone, and suddenly there is some Swedish and of course this is translatable, but this is not what we want to have, and this is not where we want to be. And to make sure that all these rules are up to date and everything is clear, you don't need to have calls and meetings to make sure everything has been understood. Because like this first slide that I presented, you might set up these rules, you might have beautiful processes set up, but people might not follow them since they will understand only 20% of it. So you need to make sure that on the meeting, for example, people present it in turns, people say what they got out of the new announcement, for example. This will help you to make sure that everyone is on the same page and there are no misunderstandings later on. And I already mentioned this, that the teams in our time zone might get preferential treatment. This is because we also tend to treat our time zone as a central one. So this is for the leaders, just to make sure that the meetings, they reflect other time zones as well, that it's not always night for someone and early morning for someone else, that we rotate. This is how we deal with the time zones, that we rotate. So it's kind of uncomfortable for almost everyone, but at least some people have it more comfortable at times. And this is a super important point, and this is about the processes, about the KPIs, about the goals and strategy in general. You do need to adjust it to the local specifications. Of course, you do want to have KPIs that are at the global level, but you need to be flexible as well, because different locations, different geographies, different cultures, they will have certain requirements or certain things that you will need to follow. And for some locations, we have very strict KPIs. I mean, very well defined, not strict, but very well defined, that they are like a proper KPI with the numbers and so on. Whereas in some other locations, KPIs are not a thing and they will disturb the kind of the flow. So it's not there. And we only have this very high level KPIs that are valid for everyone. So this is just to make sure, again, that at one side you treat everyone fairly and equally, but at the same time you really respect the local requirements and the local specifics. Especially if you acquire companies, you have to be really careful about it to make sure that you see how it's being done, and of course it might not be done the best way, so this is something to always remember about, but make sure you respect what are the local specifics. And then when it comes to other points, especially utilization and NPS, which is a net promoter score, which is the evaluation kind of metrics from the customers usually. This is how you will evaluate, but you can also evaluate managers with NPS in fact. But from the customers, we will get the NPS scores, and they are unified across all the geos so that we have the same results and we can compare them. And the second thing that is across is the utilization, because you want to know how many hours your people work, where they spend time. You also need to know, for example, if the project runs through all the geos, you need to know how many hours were spent in each geo on doing which tasks. So I think these things you really have to focus on, kind of making sure you track them. And again, you have to respect the local requirements here, but I think utilization is something that you can track pretty easily in the system. If you have one, if you don't have a system, then you can track it in the Excel sheet, just put the hours next to the project. It's not much time, but it will really help you in making sure that you standardize and where you spend the time actually of everyone. And then goals and strategy, this you have to always have in mind, especially for what I was saying before about trust. You do need to have a clear picture to share it with people. So you need to know what are the goals, and the goals can be at the local level and at the global level. And we also have always the global initiatives. And these are the initiatives that give people exposure to the other geos and also to C-level, to other departments. So this really helps people to kind of open up and present, for example, with different people. So I do recommend this. I do recommend like the initiatives being at the global level. And training, of course, this is something that is really important. But one thing I wanted to move now are the holidays. This is a map. Not sure how well you can see it, but basically the number of public holidays differs between 0 to 27. This, this means 27 working days, which is more than the holidays, the normal holidays for the employees in Poland, for example. This means that you have to take this into account when planning your whole production, when you're planning your dispersed teams. It might turn out that, for example, your team is in Vietnam, which means 27 days a year, they will be gone on the national holidays. Whereas if you are you have people in Japan, you don't have to worry about it. And you can have them being like backups for all the other guys. This is something you do need to pay attention to when you are leading and you are building the remote teams. One more thing connected to this that I already mentioned are the holidays, the personal holidays. This number also differs, usually from 10 days in quite a lot of countries to 35 even. So again, it's a huge difference that you will not have part of your team for 35 days a year, 35 working days a year. This is something you do need to take into account. Make sure you know the local requirements and make sure you calculate this, because otherwise you might face the issue of not having anyone working, for example, for the for Diwali. Let's say Diwali in India. This is close to my heart. With the India team, it's very hard to get anyone there, so you need to make sure that the other teams back up during this time. So this is something to remember and to make sure that you have, or if you plan to grow, or if you're planning the acquisition, make sure you analyze this aspect as well. And why is it more difficult now, I would say, to make sure that we manage teams effectively? You don't have this face-to-face interaction, this supervision as they call it, because people are just all around the world. You don't see their laptop all the time. You cannot go to their desk and ask them what's going on. So this is one of the challenges. Also, people have limited access to information because normally they would chat in one office, they would learn about this, or sometimes in the office you hear people talking loud about things and you learn about them. Here, it's not possible. It's more about the planned communication. So to share something with someone, you need to have a plan behind it. So it's more an action than a kind of, sometimes it was just side effect of listening to someone else talking. So you need to put more consideration into the communication. That's why we spoke quite a lot about the communication. There are a lot of distractions. There are kids at home, dogs, there are things, there is courier at the door. There are lots of things that are happening at home that you do need to take into account as well. And one thing I already mentioned as well is that we do have the silos that either come from acquisitions. So if you acquire someone, this team will be in a kind of silos. So you need to make sure that you pay attention to this as well. And you need to make sure people come out of the silo because silos in the dispersed teams are very, very bad. This is something you don't want to have. You want to make people feel they're part of the global company. They work together. They are colleagues with the person from the other part of the world. Because then only in this case, if something happens, they will be able to really help and put, as you have seen on the previous slide, they will put 7 times more effort into solving the issue. So this is quite important to remember about. And then last but not least, of course, are the tools. Especially after acquisitions, you need to make sure that you use one common system or like common systems, depending on how many you plan to use. This is very important. Otherwise, you will not really be able to have a project flowing through all the geos. You will have to have people sending files in emails or whatever using different systems. Uh, you won't have the reporting then. This is a big issue for me, for example, that I really want to have the reports. I want to know what's going on. And for this, you do need common systems. This is something to think about even before the acquisition. During the DD, during the due diligence process, think about it. Think about already the fact that you will have to unify the systems. Then automation, this is something that really helps. Like I was saying, these tasks that people don't like, put them on the list, try to automate. And it doesn't have to be really something super advanced. Simple scripts we do. We do have a lot of scripts that cover for smaller tasks, but they help a lot. People don't have to do it manually. And it just makes their work easier. And I think they get less frustrated with these manual repetitive tasks. Like I was saying, utilization is important. So the time tracking tools are important as well. And this, again, this depends on the company and its culture. We don't track time with any of the automated tools, for example, on one of these that do screenshots or whatever, but maybe this will work for your company. This is something to analyze again for every team leader. But especially for the dispersed teams, you have to make sure that you track it in some way, mostly built on the trust, probably, that people say how many hours they spend. But yeah, there are a lot of things that you can do in this area just to make sure that you think about these tools and make sure that it's covered. And this is a big topic. The last, but not least again, is the troubleshooting. Think about it. You have a project running through all the geos, and what if the team, let's say it starts in Canada. I will give you example from my background, of course. So let's say project starts in Canada, then it flows to India, and something happens in India. How do you solve the issue if the people are not there anymore? Because in Canada they are sleeping. This is something you really need to plan ahead, because when things happen, it's already too late. You already have to have ways to solve the issues. And how to identify the issues, you will already probably mostly have the idea what's going on, usually that the formats are not working, or which formats of the files you have issues with, or which subtitles don't work usually, or whatever. So these things you will usually have an idea before, but you also have to be ready for the things that you are not expecting. And I think every single person here on the conference had a situation where you really had an issue that you wouldn't expect. This is not a business risk that you would expect and plan for. So you do need a solution for this as well. So it looks like you have a solution for something that might not ever happen, but this is something that is super, super important. Otherwise, you lose a day. Okay, and this is just to finish. Like we started with some data, and this is to end up with some data. I see I'm over time, but almost done. This is about the office as such, because right now, with the dispersed teams, with the dispersed offices, with a lot of people working remotely, the whole culture, the whole idea of the office changed. And to take you through the journey of the history, kind of, it was all in US, of course. So the first open office was introduced in 50s, so quite a long time ago. And it was just to make sure that it wasn't more for cooperation, it was more for control. And also to show that some people are higher in the hierarchy, so they are bosses. It was the time of bosses, so someone that is really higher than the rest. And these people had offices, so it was visible right away when you enter the office who is who, kind of where they are. This changed in 70s because it turned out that open offices are loud. Think about it, the phones and the printers then, they were super, super loud. It was, everything was in one defined, confined space, so it was too loud. So then capitals were introduced. So it was giving more privacy, but it turned out that cubicles are too large the way they started. So in 90s and in 80s, 90s, they shrank and they were shrinking like centimeter by centimeter, inch by inch more. And so then they were too small. And in the 90s, the concept of the open office came back. But now it was more in the format of the corporation, not the control. So usually the manager would be together with the employees, sitting together as one team, making sure that you sit next to the teams you cooperate with. And now we move to the flexible office. This is what is happening right now. So I guess many of you have these mixed models of people working from home, sometimes from the office, coming to the office when needed for the meetings. With dispersed teams, you only have the flexible office that is mostly remote. Even if you have the local offices, you will meet these people very rarely. And so you need to make sure that all the previous points you really take into account to make sure that these people get familiar with each other, they get to know each other, and they feel as if they were in one office, not very far away, not only in terms of time, but also kind of space and process and everything else. So that's it. I hope it was like useful for you and there was something interesting in the presentation. And now I think it's time for questions, right?
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Iwona, for your presentation. You gave us a lot of information, and I think that most of this information can be used both for managing not only remote teams, but also local teams. So thank you very much for this.
Thanks.
I think we can get back to the other speaker because we had another speaker with us.
Yes.
Indra, she's here. Thank you very much.
Hi,
First,
Indra.
yeah, you see each
Hi,
other.
Iwona. Give the high five
So
for the
let's.
presentation.
Yes,
I-
and
I-
you could be sitting here.
No, you're
on the
welcome to
bank
talk.
of
If
the
you want to
river.
have a talk, we're happy to
We
to
were
listen.
supposed to sit next to each other and sip champagne, you know?
Yeah.
This was the plan.
Yes, it was meant to be.
Indra, if you don't mind, we're first, let's see if there are any questions to Iwona. Anyone? Yes, we have a question.
Thank you. Hi, Iwona. Thank you for your talk. It was very interesting. You were speaking about the time tracking, and I'm wondering if you can share some system to you're using to track times through distributed teams. Thank you.
Yeah, so like 2 companies ago or something like this, when I was working with 2 or 3 companies ago, there was a system that was, I think it was timeout or something like this, and it was tracking automatically the time you spent on each task. But there was a huge pushback from the teams, and teams were not really happy with this because it took quite a lot of time to make sure you click on the right things, which projects you spend time on. So right now we track it in the system that we use. So there is a window that you put, for example, you finish the project, you close it, and you need to put in the amount of hours you spent on the project. Or for the technical teams, for example, this is more granular because for technical teams, they jump from project to project and they can do a lot of projects at one time. So one is loading, they complete the other. This is a bit more granular. So whenever they finish the smaller task, they put the number of hours there. And then you can export it from the system and you have a clear picture how many hours were spent on each of the projects. Plus, you do need to make sure that you have the hours spent, for example, on meetings. You have to have category for the meetings. You have to have category we have the innovation category because people bring new ideas and it takes time as well. And also, of course, sometimes people are idle. So this is what you need to track as well to see if there is underutilization or overutilization.
Yeah, thank you. Any other questions? Yeah.
Thank you for so useful, not only for the beginners, but I do hope that just the so the mentors of the industry have also got plenty useful lessons from your presentation. And I have a
Thanks.
very practical and very challenging issue. Have you ever had an experience when the project manager, who is organizing everything, who is just interconnecting everyone, is just blackout due to some natural disaster for some weeks from the project, because he or she has neither electricity nor internet connection? If yes, what was your solution and way out? Thank you.
Yes, to be honest, it's not as rare as you would think. People do get sick. For example, we had one PM who had an accident. We also had one person from the technical department that got really hit by the COVID. And of course, it was day to day, so it's not something that you can prepare. So what we do, we have the kind of shadowing system, backupping system. This means that within the organization, everyone has someone who covers for them. And this is not only for holidays that are planned, but it's also for cases like this. So let's say you have a PM who, like you said, who is organizing everything and who is managing the whole project. Usually a lot of information is only in their head. I feel like this is the biggest challenge, that most of the information will be only in their heads. So you need to make sure before this happens that first of all, you have the information covered somewhere, either in the Excel or like in the system if you use it. Then in the system, if you have like all the details about the customer, let's say the quotes need to be done in some exceptional way, and this PM knows exactly how to do it, but no one else in the company does. So then if the information is there in the system in a very easy kind of and straightforward way to follow, then you are kind of safe, because then you know how to do it even if this person is not there. Especially for the leaders, you need to make sure that you have backups in place and they know what's going on. So that, for example, if someone goes suddenly day to day on leave, this happens. You are ready for this and you have to prepare upfront. And for dispersed teams, I have to admit, it took me up to half a year for some of the people to have the kind of backup solutions in place because of the either specifics of their jobs or something that, for example, only they had the license for some tool that we don't use often, but it's only on their computer. So these things you have to solve before things happen. So before this person, something happens to the person. And this is this hit by the bus strategy. I don't like the name, but I think it's very, it's important in the company to think that everyone can be hit by the bus. And you have to be ready for it. It cannot happen that you are left alone and you don't know what to do. You don't have accesses. You don't have tools. Projects are waiting. PM is not there. So you don't even know when files need to be sent back to the customer. This might create a lot of havoc. So I think preparation is the answer here.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you, Iwona. Let's hope nobody is going to be hit by the bus. Yeah,
yes.
But to be on the safe side, everything should be prepared. Can we get Indre back to the screen? Hi, welcome back, Indre. I have a question, if I may. Indre, you were talking about building a personal brand. Do you think that building a personal brand is also important for in-house workers, for employed people like who want to make a career in a company, and not only for those who want just to build their brand to find a better job or to promote themselves further?
Yeah, thank you very much. That's a very good question. And as I mentioned in my presentation, it doesn't matter, the position you take. You have to build your personal brand because this society likes and prefer to buy, from the person they know what they do and they stand for. So if you declare values publicly on the social media, for example, what you like and what you don't like, it's better for the others to choose, if I want to work with you or no. For example, I don't like hard jokes, and I usually prefer not to work with that person. Or, I mean, he can be fully qualified, the best, I don't know, translator for Polish Estonian, let's say, because, that's the really exotic language combination and we cannot find, any resources for that. But still, I wouldn't go, or I don't know, I would assign another person to get in contact because I simply don't find chemistry, working together. So that is why it is important, to show your values and to show the concepts you follow. So it doesn't matter if you are a freelancer, if you are the CEO, the business manager, I don't know, or just a simple knot, in the big chain.
Yeah, thank you. You know what? I was thinking that now what Iwona was talking about the remote team, and now for the past year and a half, most teams were working remotely, not only because they're in different countries and time zones, but because we all just had to work from home. And for example, our company I worked with, we hired a lot of people during that time, and they never came to the office before this summer and never saw other employees. For me, I imagine it's harder to present your personal brand to the team when you are remotely located or work from home than when it's in person, and start to continue developing this brand. Do you think it's a valid point, or maybe being located remotely and working from home is better for building your personal brand because people don't see your weak points? They
Yeah,
see
that's a
less
good
of your
point.
weak points. Huh?
Yeah, that's a good point. But when you know a person in person, it's easier, to understand the methods, the ways he communicates. For example, I met Iwona 6 years ago in Berlin. That was our first time we met. And we clearly understand, the jokes on social media and we can laugh at and all is good. But as I mentioned before, when you build your personal brand on social media, and for the person who don't know you, and especially that this is applied in our industry a lot, because we talk to our partners, I don't know, in China, in the US, and we don't meet them very often in person. So yes, still you will build the background, on social media, and then you will meet them if in person, and this will help you, maybe to delete some presumptions you were thinking of. So
Yeah.
I hope I answered your question.
Yeah, thank you perfectly. And now, Iwona, do you participate in a hiring process in your company? Do you hire PMs, like interviewing them, etc., etc.?
This depends on the role, but mostly it's the production heads. So the geographically people who are in the certain geos, and this again is because people are so different. So it's really great to have someone who knows the local requirements and the culture and so on. But I do pay a lot of attention to make sure that the production heads, they talk a lot to each other. And for example, if there is some concern about the candidate that they might not fit in culturally, they might not be open to other cultures, they might have some kind of they might not be so open to work with other cultures. This is something that we always take into account, and this might be the best candidate ever with the great background and everything, but then we will not work with this person because to work in the remote teams, in the dispersed teams, it really requires you to be super open, flexible, and think about others.
So, but would you check the social media profiles of the candidates to see if they're good for you, for your team?
Yes, I know this is the common practice. We don't do it usually. We don't check Facebook, for example. We do check LinkedIn, since this is a professional platform, and you will see the recommendations there for sure. Like Of course, they are mostly positive because you only ask people whom you are sure they will give you the positive recommendation. But anyways, it at least gives you some kind of information on whom they are dealing with and the types of the roles they get recommendations from. And also it's helpful because sometimes they to see, like Indra was mentioning, to see what they are interested in, which groups they are part of, what they like, where they act, because you see the activity of the person. So this helps. Facebook, not so much, but I did hear about the cases where people were posting on Facebook things that were inappropriate, and because of this, they were not getting jobs. So, yeah, I think it's a good advice to be careful with the social media.
So yeah, you can talk
Yeah, and
to
if I may
Indra.
just add,
Yeah, you can talk to Indra about this, and she would give you several advice on how to choose the person with the right brand.
And we have.
I was just about, to add the comment to Iwona that that's a very common practice, when people are checking on your social media before you even get interviewed. So, be careful on social media what you post.
Yes.
Yeah, that's right. Or lock your profile before you apply. Also a good practice,
Yes, yeah.
actually. Yeah, I know that people are sometimes they actually lock their profiles or deactivate them just before they apply, before they don't want the information they posted previously to influence the impression of the interviewer. Great. Maybe we have any other questions, comments? Yes.
So I have just a comment concerning the locking profiles for before applying. I don't think it's a nice practice because personally me, and I had an experience of just searching for candidates. I don't like to consider the submission when the profiles are locked. The better practice is, as for me, just having two profiles for personal life and for professional life. And I have a question to Indra. Also, thanks for your presentation, and just getting back to the question concerning the failure. Do you have any experience when so the customer which faced your failure get back again for your services?
Yeah, that's thanks for the question. I think that highly depends on the personality, who fails, because it's the way how you perceive your mistake. If you will blame yourself for the rest of your life, and not trying to learn something from it, you are dead. So just try to clarify the issues you faced, and what caused this mistake happen. I tried myself discussing with the clients, for example, yes, we failed. Admit the mistake that you did, because that's the biggest issue for interpreters, for translators, or for PMs, or for anybody. So you have to be prepared to accept it, and then try to find the remedies you want to rectify that mistake and not to happen in the future. So I highly believe, that depends on the personality, because I know some people who just simply, they cannot agree, that they did a mistake. And recently we had one freelancer who was interpreting at the ceremony of the weddings, and I don't know, the fiance or someone, I cannot remember now clearly, wasn't very satisfied, with the interpretation service. And she was claiming, that she did the right thing. She couldn't just simply accept, yes, I failed. So how can we do that not to happen again in the future?
Okay, thank you.
I
We have another
Yes,
participant.
I thought that you'll be glad to see Maria and Anna, and probably they could share with you their challenges from that project management part of their lives during the remote work. As how you manage, what were the challenges, solutions?
Thank you, Tatiana. It was quite an unexpected offer to speak. Anyway, it's good to see you both, Iwona and Indra. Oh, okay. I'm just looking at you, yeah, on the screen. Thank you for your presentations. We're here, and it's really good to listen to you. So yeah, working with people remotely has been quite a challenge. We've already got used to it and adapted, of course. Yeah, from my experience, yeah, we were surprised when we asked people after some time if they would like, people in our company in Technolex, if they would like to turn back to the office and for things to get back to normal totally. And yeah, there was a large portion of people who said, no, I'm better off this way. I've got used to staying at home and to working remotely. And even though we feel that we maybe losing touch with many of our workers, with our linguists, they may as well feel comfortable where they are now, because yeah, our job is so flexible that they can do it wherever they want to. Even here, like we see many people here working at their laptops, sitting under trees. It's amazing. So yeah, we've learned a lot with this remote kind of work that we are now forced to adopt. And also it was surprising how people quickly adapted to it, and they are mainly getting used to it. So yeah.
Thank you.
That's
Thank you. We are going.
Just Anna, could
please
you
come.
please share your
Anna is
lessons,
shy. She's not coming. I thought she decided not to.
Anna, please.
Everyone knows Anna, and Anna knows everyone, I think.
Hi. Thank you both for such a lovely presentations. We're missing you here.
We cannot hear you.
Okay. Thank you both for your lovely... Okay. Thank you both for your lovely presentations. We're missing you here. Regarding remote working, well, in Estonia, we had some minor changes and minor problems at the beginning. So it was in March last year. But we adapted very, very quickly, and now we have the problem of getting people back at the office because offices are open, but they are empty. So, yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that we will have another big problem, empty offices, because before COVID, the companies wanted to rent, bigger spaces, they were expanding, admitting more people and more. And now, when we adapted to all these remote teams, and some of them wanting to stay at home. For example, me, I didn't stay even during the COVID. I still went to the office because, I have 2 boys and a dog, so it's impossible to work for me at home. So yeah, I went to the office and I want to go. Please don't lock me,
I know what you mean, Indra, because I have the same problem. I love working at the office, but I'm always the only one there. So
Yeah.
I'm missing people around me.
Yeah. I think exactly this will be the challenge of the days, to get people back in the office. So I think this is why I was mentioning this flexible office, that we really need to be flexible and make sure that whenever it's possible, we get people together for some meetings or for some get together. But then other days we will probably need to stay and allow for the work from home.
Yeah, thank you very much, Iwona. Thank you very much, Indre. It was so nice to see you, unfortunately online, but maybe next year I hope we will see each other offline here with a glass of champagne. And for
Yes.
for our online participants, as we don't have any questions from online participants now, but you're welcome to find Indre and Iwona on LinkedIn. And if you have any questions, I hope they will be glad to answer the questions from our online participants. And now we have to go for a coffee break because we don't want to miss this opportunity when we're offline here to touch each other and have a coffee together. Thank you very much.
Definitely.
Thank you very much,
Yes.
thank you very much, ladies, and see you. Have a nice
Thank you.
weekend.
Thank you.
Thank you for the invitation. Thanks a lot. Thanks. Bye.
Bye.
Ciao.
Have a great day. Thanks. Bye.
Thank